In August 1968, 16-year-old Morgan Rowan attended a party, eager to relax and have fun with friends. She moved through the bustling rooms, caught up in the energy of the gathering, when suddenly she saw a man's face that froze her in her tracks. But before she could slip away, he seized her, pulling her into a secluded bedroom. This time, the attack was violent, his grip stronger, and his intentions darker. Morgan was trapped, overpowered, and unable to break free. But just when all hope seemed lost, her friends, alarmed by her sudden disappearance, began searching for her. Their concern led them to the room, and when they burst in, they disrupted the attack, allowing her a narrow escape. Though her friends had saved her, Morgan left the party that would haunt her for years to come. What Morgan didn't know was that her attacker would continue to attack other young women and children. Just months later, in September 1968, he tricked 8-year-old Tali Shapiro, a young and innocent girl, into getting into his car while she was on her way to school in Los Angeles. Once alone with her, he took her to his apartment, where he hit her with a metal bar. Fortunately, a concerned passerby saw Tali getting into his car and alerted the police because he suspected something was wrong. When officers arrived, they found the door barricaded, but they were able to force their way inside. Inside, they found Tali barely alive. Tali was brought to the hospital, was in a coma for 32 days, and spent months in recovery. However, the attacker managed to escape justice by fleeing the city before authorities could capture him. After Tali Shapiro recovered from her coma, she bravely provided police with crucial information that helped in their pursuit of her attacker. Despite her young age and the trauma of the attack, Tali was able to remember certain details about her attacker, which allowed law enforcement to create a composite sketch of the man. But after entering the Hollywood apartment, in order to rescue Tali, police conducted a preliminary search of the premises. They discovered personal items, such as photographs, and including identification documents bearing his real name. Despite his escape, police knew who they were looking for: Rodney Alcala. Rodney James Alcala, born on August 23, 1943, in San Antonio, Texas. Alcala was born to Raul Alcala Bucor and Ana Maria Gutierrez, and his early years were marked by upheaval and hardship. His family moved to Mexico when he was just a child. In 1951, Alcala's father left them a couple of years later. His mother made the decision to move him and his siblings to Los Angeles, California. Despite these early challenges, Alcala displayed intelligence and creativity in his youth, excelling in school and showcasing a strong academic ability. After graduating from high school, Alcala joined the United States Army in 1961, serving as a clerk. His military service, however, did not go smoothly. In 1964, he suffered a severe mental breakdown and went absent without leave, later being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. The military discharged him on medical grounds, and he returned to civilian life in California. Despite this troubled period, Alcala was able to enroll at the University of California, Los Angeles, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1968. Around this time, he began showing an interest in photography. In 1968, shortly after finishing his studies, Rodney Alcala committed his first known violent crime, the 8-year-old Tali Shapiro. Recognizing the danger he posed, the FBI placed Alcala on its 10 most wanted fugitives list, a rare and serious measure reserved for particularly dangerous and elusive criminals, hoping that increased visibility would lead to tips from the public. The publication of Alcala's photos, however, took years to yield results. In 1971, a pair of young women recognized him from the FBI posters after meeting him at an arts camp in New Hampshire. They contacted authorities, leading to Alcala's arrest. After fleeing California in 1968 to avoid capture for the brutal assault on Tali Shapiro, Rodney Alcala, and up in New York City, where he began a new life under the alias John Berger. Adopting this false identity, Alcala enrolled in the New York University Film School, studying under Roman Polanski and integrating into the city's art scene. The FBI's Most Wanted campaign proved successful when his life as a fugitive came to an end in August 1971. Two of Alcala's former classmates at NYU recognized him from the poster and reported him to the police. This arrest marked the end of his nearly 3-year evasion. Though Alcala was arrested and convicted in California for the kidnapping and rape of Tali Shapiro, he was only sentenced to 34 months due to lenient laws that emphasized rehabilitation for sex offenders. Despite evidence that Shapiro's life had been gravely endangered by the attack, Alcala served less than 3 years before being released. Less than 2 months after his 1974 release, Rodney Alcala was arrested again, this time for violating parole and providing marijuana to a 13-year-old girl who claimed he had attempted to kidnap her. According to her report, Alcala had offered her marijuana and behaved in a way that led her to feel she was being held against her will. Despite the seriousness of these charges, Alcala was given an indeterminate sentence and served only 2 more years in prison before being paroled once again. By 1977, his parole officer had granted him permission to travel to New York, supposedly to visit relatives, despite his troubling record. That summer, Alcala is suspected of murdering Ellen Hover, a 23-year-old socialite and daughter of Herman Hover, a prominent Hollywood nightclub owner and goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. Ellen's datebook revealed that her last known appointment on July 15th was with John Berger, an alias Alcala frequently used. Although her family launched an extensive search, even placing an ad in the New York Times for information on John Berger, Alcala evaded immediate capture. Eventually, in a tragic confirmation of their worst fears, Ellen's remains were found on the Rockefeller estate in North Tarrytown, New York, not far from her family's summer home. After the discovery of Ellen Hover's remains in 1977, investigators continued to pursue Rodney Alcala, but he managed to evade justice due to a lack of concrete evidence linking him directly to the murder. Following his time in New York, Alcala returned to Los Angeles. He took on a typesetting job at the Los Angeles Times and participated in the popular television show The Dating Game in 1978.
And here they are. Good luck, gentlemen. Well, let's see. Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome. There are 3 bachelors over there. There'll be 1, 2, and 3. Ask them anything you like to find out more about them, except their name, age, occupation, or income, okay? And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay, number 2.
Bachelor number 1.
Yes?
What's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
I'm a drama teacher, and I'm going to audition each of you for my private class. Bachelor number 1.
You're a dirty old man.
Take it.
Come on, over here.
Oh, honey, we ought to go out and boogie.
Really?
Bachelor number 1. I am serving for dinner.
Oh,
What are you called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
Later, Bachelor One, later.
Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take one.
Number one. That's your number one. All right. Well, you did leave one remaining. And this is your date, and I want to tell you something about him, Cheryl. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with a one answer. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you. Okay. You can go relax, meet each other, say hello, get acquainted, and they'll be back. And before we begin our next...
After his appearance on the dating game, Alcala's charm failed to translate into a real connection. The woman who had chosen him, Cheryl Bradshaw, later declined to go on the date, reportedly finding him creepy during their post-show interaction. This rejection, though seemingly minor, it did little to discourage him from continuing his predatory behavior, and Alcala quickly returned to his pattern of luring victims under the guise of being a professional photographer. Following the show, Alcala resumed his life in Los Angeles, targeting young women and girls. Using his photography as an excuse, he offered aspiring models opportunities for photo shoots, which he used to isolate and ultimately victimize them. In 1979, his spree escalated when he murdered 12-year-old Robin Samsoe after abducting her while she was on her way to a ballet lesson in Huntington Beach, California. The investigation into Samsoe's disappearance led authorities to Alcala, and a search of his belongings uncovered a trove of incriminating evidence, including photographs of unidentified young women and personal items from some of his victims. In 1977, Rodney Alcala claimed the lives of two more victims, Charlotte Lamb and Jill Barcombe, both in Southern California. Charlotte Lamb, a 32-year-old legal secretary, was found murdered in the laundry room of an apartment complex in El Segundo. She had been raped, strangled with a shoelace, and posed in a disturbing and dehumanizing manner after her death, hallmarks of Alcala's methodical and sadistic tendencies. That same year, Jill Barcombe, an 18-year-old runaway from New York, was brutally murdered in the Hollywood Hills. Alcala assaulted her, strangled her with a belt, and left her body posed, ensuring that her discovery would be particularly shocking. Both women were initially considered victims of separate crimes, but DNA evidence decades later would tie Alcala to their murders. Rodney Alcala was arrested on July 24, 1979, after the murder of 12-year-old Robin Samsoe in Huntington Beach, California. During their investigation, authorities searched a storage locker he had rented in Seattle. Inside, they found a collection of disturbing photographs of young women and children, as well as a pair of earrings that were later identified as belonging to Robin Samsoe. This evidence became central to the case against him. Alcala's trial began in 1980, and he was convicted of Samsoe's murder and sentenced to death. However, the conviction was overturned in 1984 due to procedural errors involving the jury. A second trial in 1986 also ended with a conviction and death sentence, but it was again overturned, this time because evidence of Alcala's prior crimes had been improperly admitted. Finally, in 2010, Alcala faced a third trial, during which he represented himself, further highlighting his manipulative and narcissistic tendencies. He shockingly played clips of his appearance on the dating game as part of his defense and engaged in bizarre exchanges with witnesses.
Testimony from anyone other than Mrs. Frazier that Robin's ears were pierced. None of her friends were aware of that. They were unaware of her wearing earrings. And Mrs. Frazier had plenty of opportunity to provide you, the jury, with a picture of Robin wearing earrings. She stated on the stand that she had pictures of Robin, and if Robin, like she says, wore earrings all the time, that was her habit, then there should be some earrings, some pictures with earrings, and there should be some person who isn't familial to testify that Robin wore earrings. However, no one testified other than Mrs. Frazier that Robin wore earrings.
The trial concluded with his conviction for 5 murders: Robin Samso, Charlotte Lamb, Jill Barcombe, Georgia Wickstead, and Jill Parenteau. The overwhelming evidence, including DNA matches and witness testimonies. Meanwhile, authorities in New York pursued charges for the murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover, which Alcala had committed decades earlier. In 2012, he was extradited to New York, where he pleaded guilty to both crimes. For these murders, he received an additional sentence of 25 years to life. The case against him continued to grow as investigators linked him to additional cold cases. Using DNA evidence, authorities connected Alcala to other murders across the United States, and he became a suspect in unsolved cases internationally, including potential crimes in Europe. One of the most chilling aspects of the investigation was the discovery of Alcala's collection of photographs found in his Seattle storage locker. The images depicted hundreds of women and children, many of whom remain unidentified. Law enforcement released these photographs to the public in an effort to identify potential victims, which led to several families coming forward with stories of missing loved ones. Despite this, the true scope of Alcala's crimes remains unknown, as some of the individuals in the photographs were never found. In his final years, Alcala's health deteriorated, and he passed away on July 24, 2021, at the age of 77 in a California prison. While his death closed the book on his potential prosecution for other crimes, his legacy as a manipulative and dangerous predator endures, leaving behind unresolved cases and grieving families still searching for closure. The unidentified individuals in Rodney Alcala's photographs are more than just images. They are potential victims whose stories remain untold and whose families may still be searching for them. If you recognize a face or have information that could help, we encourage you to contact your local authorities or the FBI. Every piece of information matters. Together, we can bring the missing home and honor their memories.